Everyone. Welcome to the Quantum Alignment Show. My name is Alana Heim, and I'm your guest host this week. And we're talking all about prosperity revolution / prosperity evolution. So I'm going to just pop up my screen, and you should all be able to see some slides here. So today we're just diving into really tie to who you are and all the changes that are going on. So today we're going to go over understanding the planetary grid changes. So there are big changes that are happening, and maybe you've been feeling them, and we're going to dive into it. We're going to look at this new lens of prosperity. So seeing kind of where we can be revolutionary and also evolutionary in raising our prosperity consciousness and looking at the chart. So how can we use our human who you are to be able to stay grounded, aligned, and prosperous during all of the changes that are coming, and also recognizing that the planets, they're always influencing us. They're giving us exactly what we need, and how can we use those to stay grounded and supported. And then lastly, just this aspect of trusting yourself and making your own proclamation and going into when we're raising our vibration and we're really moving into this higher prosperity. We're doing this not only on the individual level, but also for the tribe and for the collective, for the good of everybody. My name's Alana Heim, and I am a level 3 quantum alignment system practitioner and also a certified human design specialist, level 4. This is my chart. You'll see I am a projector, and I have a family with 2 generator twins, a projector daughter and a projector husband. And for me, diving into prosperity has just been something that I've done most of my life. So I am a certified public accountant and a certified financial planner. So to have come from that 3D, tangible kind of physical, strategic way of looking at money and finances to move into this lens where I'm really taking who I am and being able to incorporate, the lower chakras, the higher chakras, and being able to bridge this gap in the way of prosperity. So I've come from the financial industry, and having made this shift to really see who I am, align with my design, and align with what's going on in the world, has me looking at the financial industry in a completely different view. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those pieces and kind of bring in the practicality of what's going on in the financial world, how this is affecting ultimately prosperity, not just for you, but for all of us. So I wanted to just plant the seed that next weekend is conference. So hopefully you've all got your tickets, and that we're all going to get to learn so much more about human design. And we've got a human design store, and there's lots of vendors. I'm a vendor. Come check us out. There's lots of different practitioners and specialists and people who are going to have great things to support you. So I just wanted to plant that seed, because as the world changes, right, this store is going to be here at least through the end of the year and potentially forever. And if you need support, you know where to go. You know how to get that from any of us. So I want to just pose some questions and kind of get some interaction, some feedback, whatever it may be, on what you think prosperity is. What does it look like? What does it feel like, right? Because we tend to think of just this financial lens. We always are looking at prosperity and thinking, oh, I must be abundant. I need to have more money. But prosperity is so much more. And so I'm just wondering what that looks like for you, because the more the clarity that you have on where you're coming from, now you're going to know where you're headed, right? But if you're just kind of looking through the lens of what the world wants you to see and how you're meant to see prosperity, right, this is where we have a disconnect. So ultimately for me, prosperity has been something that really ties into being sovereign, having my own freedom and free will to be able to take back kind of the responsibility and the control over my life. So that looks like leaving the financial industry to start a business so that I had more ability, let's say, to be of service in a way that actually supports who I am and allows me to have that flexibility and freedom. Health is super important, and we're going to dive into just a little bit more of it. But for me, health is that same kind of level of I am prosperous because I choose how I take care of myself, what I get to do for my body or put in my body. And really, this is a piece where we're going to see as this prosperity lens is shifting, the grids are changing. We've been so indoctrinated in wanting to get whatever the external world tells us and do what they say, right? And to listen to what everybody else says will work for your body. And knowing your human design is so important because now you get to dive into either experimenting or aligning with the chart in a way that actually works for you. So if you have comments or questions or things, just go ahead and post them in the chat and even on Facebook, right? And I've got Cindy here helping to kind of go through that. So here's some other prosperity questions. Looking at this lens, depending on if you are an undefined sacral, a manifestor, projector, or reflector, what does prosperity look like? And what are the actions that you can take towards moving into having more prosperity? Because there is that piece where in the 3D, we want to really lay out and kind of visualize and see what needs to be done. But we have to be tangible. We have to actually take action and do things in the physical to allow for it to show up. So there might be things that you've been getting into intuitive hits, maybe jumping out of the market or staying in the market or getting into something different or leaving a job, whatever that looks like, it's all going to lead towards prosperity. So I want you to hone in what that is for you. If you're a generator type, you need more of that specific question. So just word it a little differently so that you can get a yes, no response. Do you know what prosperity looks like for you? And here's the other piece. Depending on if you are in relationship and you've got a spouse or a partner, or you've got other significant others or colleagues or whoever may be in your life, they may have a different lens. They may have a different outlook for what prosperity looks like for themselves, as well as what they think it looks like for you. So I really want you to go inward and figure out what works best for you. What is it you want? So the old planetary grid, and I'm just going to give this caveat. If anything triggers you during this show, just know I'm sending love. And I am somebody who, part of my chart is I dig deeper because I have that focus or that kind of motivation to look into the fear and go beneath it. I'm always wanting to dig deeper and to go within. And really, when we go deeper, we're going to look at what's under there that needs to be resolved. What's not working? What's kind of scary, and how do we release that? And especially in prosperity, this is really important because we're used to seeing this, and we're used to thinking this is our flower of life, right? It looks cool, it's amazing. We see it all over, especially in our spiritual world. But I want to caution you that this is the grid that has been encapsulating Mother Earth and all of humanity and the inhabitants, meaning this ultimately is this grid that it felt like it worked, but really it's on a kind of like a karmic loop. So I'm going to go ahead and share this next piece here. This is why we're constantly stuck in this loop. And even if you want to say the yin and yang is very similar, it brings balance, but you're constantly pulling from the other side. And what I want you to understand is with this grid, we are learning, we have learned, our whole system, DNA based, everything has been to learn to pull from each other, right? It's created this scarcity aspect, the lack, the debt cycles, right? When we look at our financial world, everything is constantly taking or pulling from something else because we're not connected to source in this aspect. There is no central source point. There is no 0 point. And so when we think about that and we look at it and go, what does that mean? What I'm saying is source, that is the infinites of everything, the oneness that we are longing to get back to. We haven't been able to connect to it because we've been learning how to use our energy to take rather than to give in a way that we are pulling from the infinite source point, that we're pulling from God. So if you are a healer, and we all really are, if you've ever done Reiki or any other healing or energetic modalities, you know that you're not doing a healing and running your energy and giving your energy away. You're pulling from source. That's what this model has not allowed for us to have. It was not based on the 12 base. It wasn't based on 36912. It was based on 369, which meant it's kind of a cannibalistic energy. We are pulling from each other. And this is why we live with such guilt and fear and shame and all of these lower vibrations about thinking, but if I get bigger and I start a business, who am I taking from? If I have so much, who am I causing to not have enough? And the reality is there already is enough, but we have been kind of stuck in this aspect of such materialism, so much so that everything is financially driven, everything is debt-based or money-driven. And you're seeing that in all of our systems where we want to be taken care of health-wise. Let's just go into the health system. But at the same time, what are the intentions of the companies? And we usually are told that they're looking out for our best interest. But the reality is only you know what your best interest is. No one else can or will know that for you. And when they are creating a product that they're here to sell, right? This is why we don't like selling. We think it's dirty. We think it's evil because there is a level of manipulation and greed and control and power that goes into it, that it's all about the money, right? So for those of us who are spiritual, we have sometimes that disconnect and that money avoidance kind of symptom of thinking, I don't want the money because it's filled with all of this old grid, systematic, low vibrational aspects that are really causing us to need each other or feel stuck or separate. There's lots of division that's kind of coming through, and you'll see it even in our media, in education, right? It's always about this competition that I'm better, you're not, and this inferiority and superiority that kind of comes into it, right? The dichotomy, the dualism, polarity. I want you to start to recognize we've already been given the go-ahead. Humanity has made it to the next level where we're breaking free of this. This is what we're feeling. We're feeling all of this. And I just want you to recognize that when we know that this is where humanity has been, and there are many humans who have literally come to planet Earth as their first source aspect of life incarnation. And they've been here so long and they've been stuck in the loop, the karmic loop, and they can't get out. And so many light workers have come, other beings, we've come to help to goal, and it's here. And so this is the exciting part, although it's going to feel a little scary because we're so used to it, right? We're used to our systems and thinking things are working the way they should and thinking that they're taking care of all of us and that we're all prosperous. But really, when you look at it, there's just power struggles. And now even in different aspects of how we think, right? We're being kind of pulled away from each other, right? We're not one. We're not connecting to source and realizing that we all have this power inside. So I just want you guys to see kind of, especially have the awareness that as we move forward into the fall, we've got elections here in the US. We have lots of big changes. We're going to be heading into fall and then winter, and who knows what's going to happen with said virus, that there will be these old tactics that are deployed. And I'm telling you that when you're used to a system and you don't want this to go away, the powers that be will be using these. And so having the awareness and to start to see through it and to start to pull from source rather than each other, right? It's not about being right or wrong. It is about being who you are and allowing others to also be who they are. So I'm going to give you this question. What if you lost everything? Because we have Mother Earth who is playing into this role, right? She's got this encapsulation. She is also evolving and shifting and moving to a new level. So we're starting to see, especially I'm in Reno, Nevada, we had the fire NATO, right? This whole new, brand new, never been seen before kind of tornado that we don't get, that had fire. we're starting to see things we've never seen before. So I want you to know that is an indication of the changes, and we can't always rely on what was. And it's having us to go into more of our sixth sense, more of our intuitive abilities, because what you see is not always really what you see. For example, I had lost something on my computer, this file, and I was looking for it and it wasn't there. And I was so upset and so mad and was having an emotional breakdown until I realized in the pause, wait a minute, my computer, my Mac has that little button where it sometimes has an extra desktop. Let me go check there. And sure enough, it was on another desktop. I don't know how it got there, but it wasn't gone. But I thought it was gone because that's what I saw. And so you've got to go in and trust, right? And it was in that pause, in that void moment of finding clarity and stepping back and suddenly seeing a possibility in a way I couldn't. So if you were to lose everything, right, in a fire, a tornado, whatever catastrophe, whatever might come up, what would that look like? What does losing everything even mean? Because does that mean losing your job? Does that mean losing your family? Does that mean losing your home and everything that you own? What does that look like? And I'm taking you down to that place where we've got to kind of have an idea, because we're really attached to that physical world I showed you. We're very much ingrained in the physical, in our material stuff. Where I had grown up and where my mom still lives in Northern California was part of one of the massive fires that ran rampant just a couple of weeks ago when Mother Earth was in the gate 30, the gate of passion and intensity. And I found that kind of interesting. My mom was on the cusp of losing. She was evacuated. She didn't lose everything, but so many people that I grew up with, that I knew, lost everything. And it kind of prompted that conversation to have with my family, to have with my kids. The twins being 6, they're still really young. And my daughter being 12, right? They're still young and not understanding. When we talked about if there were to be a fire, because we live in hills and, you know, we have fire season here in Reno all the time. What would we take? What would we grab? And at the end of the day, there's really not a lot that we would take. You know, there's a few pieces here or there, information, computers, but, you know, all of this stuff is not that important. And that's the part where we start to realize, then why do we have it, or why are we so attached? And if there are things you're attached to, I implore you to recognize how that is playing into your prosperity. Because if we are to leave an entire old planetary grid that was really holding us back and keeping us in scarcity, what if we had to let all of that go in order to go into the new grid I'm going to show you and have the new prosperity lens and kind of start with a clean slate? Would you want that? And would that be okay? Right? Things that we don't always want to think about because it feels painful, or maybe it just doesn't feel right. This is why I want you to recognize that your health is your wealth. To leave a fire, to get out with your whole self intact, with your family, with your animals, whatever it is, it comes down to, it's about you, because you are your greatest asset. You are the most important thing, and we need you here on the planet. It's not about all of the stuff. And if this pandemic is really teaching us anything, it is to go inward and recognize that the responsibility and the power that we have comes down to, how are we taking care of ourselves? How are you nurturing who you are, aligning with your design of who you are, and giving yourself everything that you need to be supported? And that's the part where sometimes we've just let the grid take it, right? Let me just have my doctor tell me what's best. Even though you get that feeling of, this isn't correct for me, I want you to recognize your health is so important. And what we're seeing with the virus is this influx of the energies shifting, right? We're in an old grid, and some of the energies are going to have to leave. And that means that there will be some of us who continue on or not. And what I've read and heard is that we all play a role in this. So whether we live, right, or not, there is that aspect of the cleansing is going to happen on the other side. There will be no more karmic loop on this planet. And that is a huge thing to recognize, that everybody's doing their part. So even those who leave us are doing their part, and they are helping us evolve to this next level. So please take care of you. Give yourself what you need. And I know I've been pushing myself a lot, and I am looking forward to this long Labor Day weekend and actually just unwinding, being the projector, relaxing, enjoying myself, giving myself what I need. And you are here to do the same. So this new prosperity lens, I want you to see, this is the eternal life lotus. And you're probably going to notice the central point here, right? We have a source point, and source is here. And this is the new grid we are coming into. And I feel like when I've worked with clients and I've been sharing this information, there is like a code already being released, and maybe you feel it. And maybe this is just going to speak to you, and you're going to know deeply, this is what we've been looking for, right? We've been working towards this, especially in human design, in the spiritual world, knowing everything's shifting, everybody's awakening. The difference is we have source. We're pulling from source. There's a zero source point. Everything comes back and goes and comes back, and we get to pull from source rather than from each other. That's the piece in human design where sometimes even when we're explaining it and we're talking about, if you have an undefined center and right, you can feel the world and all this energy coming in, or you're getting drained, right? Or you're giving other people energy with your defined centers. There's an aspect where we still talk and kind of have seen it in the old grid of I'm pulling from you and you're pulling from me. I want you to just start to recognize that you are pulling from source through others, but we are no longer taking the energy from each other. We don't need to do that. And the energies are so powerful when you get to really feel and explore what's going on around you, knowing you can tap into that at any point. Now, that's the part that's really on the masterful side of being able to use the energies. That's what I love helping my clients understand, because even though I'm the projector and I have an undefined throat, there is a level of me knowing how to share whatever it may be and know how to take care of my energy and use it in a way that I can do it in bursts and still be sustainable, because I don't need to pull it from anybody else. I can pull it from source. So going back to this kind of artificial life, right? It's not eternal. It was more the finite. And this is where Dr. Jerry Rivera Juginho, he's the one who is kind of putting out some of this information, that this was based on 369. It didn't have the 12. And so it was this constant, it's kind of cannibalistic, like I said before. The Fibonacci is part of that. Because when you really look at the Fibonacci, it is constantly kind of growing bigger and bigger, but it never goes back to source. And so there's so much more, and I know we don't have very much time, but ultimately we are in a 12-based system, and we are including the 12. And there is such power here. And I feel like, I know Tesla was onto this and some of his information was taken. And when we get pieces like this, and you see this even in the Kabbalah life tree, like the tree of life, it was on a 10 base. It wasn't on a 12 base. So even that, I think Holy had the components, but we weren't given all of the information. And so when we are using things and we don't have the whole story, which is kind of how I always feel when we're talking history, and maybe this is why I never enjoyed history. There's just always this sense of, this isn't really history. This isn't the true story. There's something missing. And if we continue to be stuck in a loop, of course we're going to repeat the same pattern, right? Because there's nothing else to break us free until now. Until now, we get to learn how to tap into this infinite aspect of source where everything began, and it comes from within and it's everywhere. So just to kind of go back from looking at the scales on the finite artificial life flower, where there's just so much lack and scarcity and competition and stuckness and divisive and guilt and shame and fear and anger and hate, all the low vibration, right? That's not where we're headed. That's not where we've ever been. That's not where we came from. This is part of why the human design is so amazing, because it really is the map to remind you of what you chose for this life, to help you to understand how to navigate and shift the world in this particular life and then moving forward, because really time is irrelevant. But there's so much opportunity here, right? This is true prosperity and abundance. This is where we create value and we're of service, and we're doing it because we have plenty, because there is enough, because you are enough, because you are collaborating, that there is this beingness of you being connected to source and source being connected to you, and then all of us being connected, right? We're all part of the grid. And this is ultimately what we're moving to around the earth. And it starts here. And this is the fun part, right? This is everything that quantum human design is all about. Everything that Karen is changing within the languaging to understand the system, it is tied to these higher vibrational aspects of who we are. And it comes from this. It comes from the oneness and being able to receive from source, to be able to be resourced or be resourceful, right? All of that gate 25 aspect of love of spirit and source, it's tied in here. And yes, we're still going to have that connection to the ego side of our heart, but more and more the ego also, that's exactly where we have service and we have integrity, right? It's not just the lower vibration of the old grid. So I just really want to paint that picture of where we've been, what is shifting, and to ask you the question of what if you lost it all, because everything was based on the old grid. And that means as we continue to evolve, we are starting to create more from this realm. And you're going to see that in things that just align with you and how you want to work in the world, or how you want to financially be sound, that we can't just keep depleting or taking from Mother Earth. That is not sustainable. And that's the part where we're here to be sovereign in our individuality, because we're already connected. I hope that makes sense for everybody. So the revolution, this evolution part, right? They're very close together. But ultimately, I want you to proclaim, because I am very conscious of the languaging we use, that sometimes the words are kind of undermining the meaning. And, sometimes we want to declare, but I don't really like how that's worded, because it almost feels like an unclarity. So we tend to only hear proclamation and proclaim in the governmental sense. Well, guess what? That's not what is in charge of you. That is not who you are. And you are your own sovereign being. And so I want you to proclaim that. And also recognize that we are on this planet as humans with free will. And we are not here to just give it away or have people take from us. And I want to bring this up because this is a big part of what the revolution is right now. This is what's really going on, right? We're going to have pandemics, and we're going to have all kinds of things that are really happening, but there's a bigger story to it. And we're not able to get to that root. And they're not going to tell us, right? They're going to want to hold us in that karmic loop. I want you to recognize what you stand for, what you're moving towards, what you're aligning with. That's ultimately your prosperity. And nobody can take that from you, and nobody can force you to do things you don't want to do. And they are going to be very coy and deceptive, right? Remember those aspects of the old grid to make you think you have to do things you don't have to do. There are going to be threats and bribery or extortion or whatever tactics were part of the old. And this is where you get to just really connect with source and be aligned, connect from Mother Earth all the way up Cosmic, you are part of this energy. You're connecting, and what is true, that's what you listen to. If there is a part of you that starts to have your spidey sense, or that Peter tingle that was in the Spider-Man movie of, hey, this doesn't feel right, or this isn't true, and this is stepping in and overriding my truth, and it's not aligned for me, you know, part of the old grid. The revolution is that we all start to stand up in a way that we haven't before, because we have to have the old come down. And that might sound scary, right? I'm excited because I want this prosperity. I want this source point. I want this for everyone. And I know that is part of the new earth and us reaching this new ascension level. That means we may have things that happen to us that are really for us, so that we can grow and that we can continue to expand. So it's about our consciousness, and that is part of the revolution and part of the evolution. Our consciousness, it continues to expand to a point where the old grid can't control it. And that's a big part of what's going on. They want control, they want the power, the greed, the manipulation, right? Because when a few own everything and control everything, right? I feel like some of the things that have been showing up that maybe have been of their design, actually a great catalyst to us all awakening, for us to truly begin to come from the physical, right? From those lower three chakras, to be able to finally see in the physical that this is just part of where we are right now, but to move forth, to connect to our heart space, and then bridge the gap with our higher self, that our consciousness is raising, our prosperity is raising, because we've always had this. It's just not being dumbed down, or it's not turned off, or right, even on the physical, we are evolving back to our 12-strand DNA. We are evolving back to having the intuitive gifts that we've always had. And that's led me on a journey of wanting to remember my Atlantean powers, and coming to find where, guess what? My name was Alana when I was in Atlantis. And I want to go back because that just sparked something I forgot to mention here. The aspect here within this, you're going to see two layers, the gold and the silver. The masculine and the feminine are part of this. It is a mesh. It is a blend. It is a oneness. So when we look back at the Atlantean times, it was too masculine and everything had to fall. Lemurian times was too feminine. So recognize that even as we continue to move forth and we're talking about our feminine powers rising, they are not to rise above the masculine, are to meet, and for the masculine to also begin to find the feminine. So if you are a male and you are watching and you are going to conference and you see everything's talking about, women and feminine, you have a feminine power just as much as women have a masculine power. And it is up to us to find that balance. That is very crucial for the times that we're headed into. So again, we're going to have some of those masculine, feminine qualities and things within who we are, with how our energy centers work. But when we get to pull from source, right, there is that aspect where you get to kind of bring down the masculine, raise up the feminine, be in that awareness of how do we come together? We need each other. That's why we're men and women, right? And it doesn't matter what your gender is or your sexual ways are, or, all these things that we got lost in, or what color you are. It's the oneness. It's that we are all coming together, and we're starting to see through this lens of oneness and pulling from source and pulling each other into being able to have source. Cindy, I saw someone raise their hand. I don't know if there is a question or how I even would access that. Let me see.
I must have raised it. I'm not seeing the raised hand.
Okay.
But there is a couple questions that came in on Facebook. Did you want those, or
sure?
I was kind of holding. Hey Joss, does a base 12 Lotus move in a toroidal pattern?
No, and that's part of the old system, right? Because it was very kind of one or whatever dimension, I don't know. That remember that there's all the aspects of how it moves, and even with our chakras, front and back, right? They're moving, but just the same, they're constantly kind of going in different directions. So this, going back to what this looks like, you're gonna kind of have to see that it really is all, it goes in different directions. So like top, bottom, left, right, angles. And I don't know that the toroidal ever really did that. It was just kind of like, and we also always saw it just coming in and out. And the part to remember too, it can go in different directions. And I think that's the part. And I've really going more and learning more about different chakras and how I can use the energy to be able to kind of send people energy healings. There's a difference in how when the energy runs from the root to the crown versus when the crown can actually come down, right? We've got the source point, and now the neutrinos come in, and now it can actually funnel down and affect the root, right? That sometimes we forget that there are these components of how the energies can move and be kind of used and explored. Does that make sense? Hopefully that was helpful.
It made sense to me. I mean, having the energy go all, move in all directions, which would, I think you were mentioning it, would also imply not time might have a different meaning than two instead of.
Yeah. I see some, Michael just said, how did you access your Atlantean name? So through the Akashic record reading I had with someone, and just wanting to go deeper and just this knowingness. And then here's the really crazy part. So my pen here says Atlantis. I probably bought these like 3 years ago, had no idea it said Atlantis. So the pieces of the puzzle are all around us. And I just kept having this this feeling, right? Like that I can heal or I can do something. And when I get to, let's see, I'll have another slide. Oh, this will work. Let's see, was this the one I was going to do? Where the energies, like I just kind of knew, because we're actually moving. Yeah, I'll get to that one in a minute. We've all had the 6124 channel since kind of the beginning of the year, and since May, and we're going to have it through the elections through, I think it's like November 27th, the whole world. And there was just this sense of our clairsentient audience, clair olfactants, like clair whatever, right? All of our intuitive abilities are going to come through, because that's the thing where subconsciously your soul knows what you've been able to do in the past. And just kind of having this feeling that it's going to come, and more of us are going to recognize it. And so I just had this feeling of something like I'm supposed to heal or do something. So anyway, I had the Akashic record reading, but I knew what I was looking for, right? And obviously my soul was ready for me to receive it, to be able to say, I know there's something here as I keep learning or reading about Atlantis, that I know there's so many of us on the planet right now that came from that time. And there's deep stuff that I was even triggered last night, seeing some human 2.0 centaurs and knowing we did that in Atlantis. That more and more, that's what I was told. In Atlantis, I had healing abilities, that I could help and I could heal through my hands. And as I talk about it, they get really hot now. So that's taken me into a focus to be able to go even deeper into that world and how to incorporate it with my clients, because the chart is a map for me. And I was told my name was Alana. And it's really interesting because it's one of those names that people will say, oh, that's really pretty, or that's a great name. Where'd you get it? My mom named me from a school kid. But everyone says it wrong, right? I know why. It's Alana, like Atlantis, because it's part of that. It was just something, right, to help me remember. So I want you guys to just recognize that all of this consciousness of whatever you've pulled from wherever you've been, if you go have an Akashic record reading, or if you go do some shamanic work or get deeper into the arts, the healing arts, whatever it is that calls to you, because you just have that sense, that's what's needed. That's where we're headed. But the logical old grid says there's no room for that, right? They didn't want healing. They don't want medicine that's going to actually allow you to heal yourself, or things where you can do it for yourself, right? That's true prosperity. But our old grid really wants to control it and wants to almost keep you at an unhealthy level for greed reasons. And so when we see that, where we're evolving is even just to have the awareness to say, this isn't true anymore. This is shifting. This isn't true for me. And you begin to remove yourself. So prosperity comes even in these tumultuous, crazy times because you are grounded and centered in knowing yourself, right? So this is my chart, and this is me knowing right now I'm getting, because the 1211 is in the nodes are sitting in those gates, I'm getting completion. And I get to play with it. I get to explore and experience, what does it feel like to actually have this single definition, being able to connect, right? Use the energy in both directions. And I've seen that and felt that so much knowing my chart, where my emotional energy can pull on my will center as much as my will center can pull on my emotions. It is not one directional. So we can and often talk about the toroidal kind of effect in the chart and how the energy wants to go up. But remember, the energy can come down, right? And there is an ability to pull, right? We know that these energies can come to the throat when timing is right, when you are recognized and you're able to express, you get to bring that in. So there's lots of power in knowing the chart, being able to stay grounded, right? I can sometimes get lost in the pressure and the adrenaline and take on more than I should. I can feel other people's fear. Plus, I have that as part of my awareness anyway, with knowing kind of these variables and just understanding the underneath of the chart to go, oh my gosh, no wonder I'm very left brain. I'm very left focused in these certain aspects. And so helping my clients, helping people understand why sometimes there's still these conundrums in the chart. And where is that playing in to your prosperity? How can you use them to your advantage, no matter what is going on in the world? Because that's key. That's the part where aligning with who you are. You're not going to, for me, the integrity piece and just recognizing there's big shifts going on, especially in the financial world. So I've got some financial prosperity aspects here that I just kind of wanted to pull in, because this is a big part. When we think of prosperity, we think of finance, we think of money, we think of all of these things that are going to allow us to have, right? We think of doing, having, being, rather than being and then doing and having, or just that beingness first. So when we're following our design, literally listening to your strategy and your authority, making sure that you're honoring that goes a long way. Because if there's a part of you that now has the awareness of the old grid and the new grid, and you are seeing how you're following your strategy and authority, and there is just some old world stuff that's trying to pull on you, you're going to start listening more intensely to the physical, right? It's not about the mind. It is about dropping into the physical body, feeling the sensations, listening to your or if you're a generator, really listening even to your heart expansion that you can feel as a projector, or an undefined sacral, where there's a lightness or there's a heaviness or whatever that may be. You're trusting yourself and your heart. So your health and your wealth is the most important thing. That's what we're going to continue to realize, because when we have to let go of some of these things that are ultimately holding us back and attaching us to that old grid, right? We got to cut those cords. Everything that we talk about in quantum human design, it's about being of service, right? We know the chart is evolving. We know that we are moving into being more nurturing and having that care and service and love and compassion as part of kind of business circuitry, that this is where we're coming from. We're coming from the new grid. And it's just, it feels a little wonky because you can't just birth the new grid, right? It's this evolution, and Mother Earth is playing a role too. So just remember, as she's going through things and she's letting go, that it's here to help us let go. If there were financial commitments that you entered into incorrectly, not following your strategy and authority, or they no longer feel aligned, then let them go. I've done that with the markets. I've realized for a while, yes, I have gone through it all, and I know how the markets work and how That's where you're supposed to put your money. When you really start to kind of break free of the old grid, you start to see just how encapsulating it was. And there's that it's the only option. And to me, there's too much control there, right? And I don't want the markets. I really don't anymore. I don't want the tax system, right? And I live in this world. This is what I've been doing for 20 years. It's not prosperous. It's not sustainable. It's actually pulling from each of us. And this is why we feel like we have to take from each other. That's how our debt-based society was designed, right? They're going to continue to print more money. And at some point, the house of cards will fall. Everything that we thought was structured and stable, it's really just been a farce, right? That's part of this, because it has to. The old grid has to come down. So just knowing what you want to create and manifest, right? Getting very clear, if you are more left focused like I am, getting clear and following it, listening to your truth, investing in the things that are more sustainable. So if we know that we are moving and we're kind of in, but kind of moving still towards more of the Aquarian age, more of the air-based energy, technology, resources, we can't keep pulling from the earth, right? And I was just talking with my daughter yesterday where she was like, Mom, why do you sometimes read books on, your iPad? Why don't you just read the real books? And I said, well, sometimes I do. She's like, well, what if all the books go away? And I said, I know, right? We love that. I said, but how many trees do we take down to print books? And it was just like that revelation of, oh, you're right. And so the things we've been used to, right? Like we're going to be attached to it, but what if it has to change? Not just because it's, I don't know, that it has to change, but ultimately it's changing because we're evolving. Our consciousness is evolving. And really, when we get to that place where we are all telepathic and we can have even more of those abilities, and we don't even need to write stuff down, we can just tap into source and pull it, or you know what I mean? Then we don't need to be taking it out on Mother Earth and claiming all the land and just building. So you're seeing more and more vacancies. You're going to continue to see that because people are realizing they don't have to live in New York City. They can live anywhere and still work there. That you're going to have all these buildings, like, and I live in a place where we still have massive building. We have more and more houses going in, but we've just taken over the land, right? And so if there are investments that you're in, or you're already getting that sense of, oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't be in real estate, or I shouldn't own this, that is up to you to figure out, where does your prosperity lie? What is it that's sustainable, and what is creating value? Real estate's great in the sense that it always creates value for somebody else, gives them a place to live, gives them a place to work, do their business, whatever it may be. But when you're just dumping money into a stock market, what value is it creating? Right now, it's kind of an artificial, inflated, because at some point, right, they've never let it actually find its sustainable wave. It's just been on a trajectory that's been very controlled. So at some point, right, when is it going to come back around? And maybe it's going into investors' pockets who are creating companies and doing more good. Okay. But ultimately, when we invest in it, we take it almost as a gamble and just hope that it's going to make lots of money. We have no idea what it's doing for us or what it's doing for the earth or humanity. And so taking back your responsibility, proclaiming your prosperity is taking back that responsibility, knowing what you're investing in is truly what makes your heart rejoice, and create the sustainable projects, or going more local and recognizing that maybe some of our food logistically is going to have to change, that we can't just eat the food all year round rather than seasonally, right? These little things that, again, part of this new sustainable resourced system. It's about loving yourself and loving money, even for what it is. And yes, it may be more on a virtual side. So starting to recognize cryptocurrency, it's still not, some of it is still based on that finite life system, right? Some of it is evolving, and there's some pretty cool cryptos out there. And I have to tell you that when you want to start to get into that space, it can feel a little scary because it's decentralized and you start to actually have control of your money in a way that you never did with the banks. And that was by design, right? That control, greed, manipulation, all of it. So just recognizing that there are some of those systems that are coming online. Some of them still will not be absolute, and they're still just part of the birthing process, and we're trying to figure it out. But the innovation for all of us is just going to skyrocket when we don't have these limits. What else is possible? What else can we create for each other? So the planetary influences, this is important. So you'll notice right now, we don't have any activations off the spleen. We have almost, and I'll show you this picture, almost kind of the manifestation, which is pretty exciting, which is cool. We've had the 6124 I mentioned before. So this was just kind of running it my time as of when we were going to be here. We've have right now, Venus is activating the gate 56. The nodes have the 11 and the 12. And then we've got Neptune that's down here in the 22. So the whole world has these energies, right? It's not just me. This is actually what we're all experiencing. There's a lot of high-low emotions, right? There's also a lot of knowingness where you're getting intuition. You are getting the seeds to whatever it is that you are meant to take action on in the way of your prosperity. So if I fast forward to election day, this is where we're going to be. We're still going to have the head energy and the ajna energy, right? And we're going to be kind of right back almost in that energy that Karen talked about as potentially being the catalyst to the start of the virus, that there's just lots of stuff that's kind of going on here. We've got some splenic gates that are activated, and we usually talk about these as fear. I like to actually focus on them as courage and looking at, we're going to have this channel here, the 4426, and being able to just see that there's a lot of business energy that is tied to this. And there's some fear of the past, but really there is such a keen sense of smell, and maybe even being able to tune in and be super alert at what's going on, aligning with your integrity, voting accordingly. And guess what? That's a whole other aspect of when you start to see the manipulations that are going on. And I know even in our state that I think we could still be able to vote live, but how that's wanting to be controlled, right? And they're wanting to do certain things and maybe control however it's going to work, right? Again, last ditch efforts to hold on to what was, and for us to recognize it's time to let it go. But just seeing that there's still going to be some of the 22 energy here. We've got the 45 that is going to be here in the nodes, the 26 and the 45 here in the nodes. So just some of that distribution, that spending kind of energy, but also just wanting to distribute. All of this stuff is going to be going on in a couple months. So these are the energies that are impacting you. So as I mentioned, where we know how we can receive energy and we can also pull from it, this is more like that source kind of energy. When you know where the planets are, what they're bringing you, you get to borrow it, you get to use it, you get to be resourced, you get to have new connections that maybe you wouldn't normally. You get to explore these energies. And so if this head and ajna energy is new for you, be very gentle, right? You might need to lay down to meditate, or lay down more because your head is just so foggy or overwhelmed or swimming or whatever it may be. Not personal, it's just there to support you. Even if it feels like it's not supporting you and it's giving you too much, then give yourself more of a reason to nurture, right? To take breaks, rest, bathe yourself in a nice Epsom salt, essential oil bath, whatever it is. Go for a walk, ground, be with Mother Earth. These are the things that are super important for you to recognize so that you are taking care of your health and making sure that that is aligned. And that's what's going to help bring in more of the prosperity. So looking at more of this courage aspect. So the sun will be coming in and activating this. All the splenic gates we run through September 26th through November 4th. Mercury and Venus are also part of it. So we're going to have some communication. Mercury retrograde actually happens during this time, and Venus, kind of our love and values and different aspects, that's coming in. And you'll see what date falls in between all of those. November 3rd, right? So that's why we saw over here these three gates, because we have these three activations by the sun and Mercury and Venus, and just kind of seeing what's going on election day, right? Looking ahead, looking at where things are. And this is what you can do to help prepare yourself. so that you're raising your own vibration. And this is what transforms your life. This is what allows you to keep being who you are, doing what you're doing, loving yourself, loving the planet, being resourced. So I just want to introduce you to my Courage to Thrive Sun Activation Program. This starts on September 26th when the sun moves into the energy. So what I love about this program is I love to teach not just about the energy, but with the energy, right? So you get to really dive in to understanding these higher expressions of courage. Yes, we're going to see kind of the lower expression and know what potentially the fear might be within your chart or what you've picked up and been conditioned, programmed from others, but learning to have this higher expression that whether the gate is activated or not, you start to learn what that feels like. You start to realize where you've maybe picked it up from other people. And when we're wanting to be more prosperous, there is that aspect of manifestation. And we have to be very clear on what we want and begin to take action. So when you're using the energy, you get to help not only have the courage to move forward, align it in a way that you're going to call in the prosperity that you want, no matter what's going on in the world. And so integrating and really living your human design is super important as we move forward, because there's so much going on. There's so much change in the world. But as the world's evolving and Mother Earth is evolving and you are evolving, right? You're evolving to that higher consciousness. You are raising your prosperity. And guess what? You're already that beacon that can send that out and allow others to be able to receive and kind of feel that bright vibration and help bring them up even when things feel kind of crazy. So I love to be that guide as the projector, and just provide the love and support and be able to help you understand and also live it. So it's an 8-week program. We are running not just through the 7 courage gates, we're actually going through 3 of the knowing gates as well. So the knowing gates that run kind of up the center, off the identity, we have the 1, off the ajna, the 43, off the sacral, we've got the 14. All of them are knowing gates. All of them are highly about being individual, and the 14 is prosperity. So it just kind of rounds it out, knowing I was going to cover, let's just dive into all the courage, but take you through feeling the energy of the prosperity. And because the sun is activating, right, that is a totally different feel than when I run this program in the spring when the earth is activating it. So the sun is all about helping you express out. So where is the courage that you want to express out in a way that's going to allow you to align with who you are and take the action to go manifest the things that you want, right? To really call in prosperity and move into that more eternal life lotus, and to let go of the old. So there's 8 healing techniques as well to support you that you get. 10 videos. I do videos to tell you kind of about where the energies are, how it's going to affect you, what's going on. And I release those the day that the sun moves into position. So you've got 5 or 6 days to kind of play in the energy. You've got a healing technique to help support you with moving into action, releasing, whatever it may be. And then throughout the program, there's 3 separate live Q&A coaching calls. So those are 75 minutes on October 15th, 29th, and November 12th. So right after elections, but you're getting supported all throughout, because who knows what's going to happen. And my whole intention is to allow you to be able to thrive. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. You create whatever it is that you want. So the investment for this program is $222. And I do have a 3-part payment. So you can also choose the $74 per month to join the program. And I love giving extra value. That's kind of my will center. That's like, ooh, let's give some more bonuses or whatnot. So anybody who joins by Friday, September 18th, will get these additional bonuses where you're going to get a $37 off coupon that you can use towards a consulting session or one of my recorded programs. And then I have another live Q&A kind of coaching call that is on September 22nd. So to kind of get you what you need before you dive in, before you're getting kind of the support, I love to be the guide and say, okay, what is it you need support with? Here's what I see in the chart. Here's what's going on. And you get that additional. Now, if you do choose to do the full pay option, I will also get you the Courage Essential Oil by Purified Skin Therapy, and I will have that mailed to you. And because you guys are quantum alignment show attendees, I wanted to also just kind of throw in this extra kind of proclamation when you're like, yes, I want in, when you join by Wednesday. So giving you plenty of time if you're emotional, get through the weekend. You can watch the replay by Wednesday, September 9th, before conference, right? So that we have this window. The first 5 people to join the program, I will give you a private 20-minute coaching call. So we can dive into your chart. If you have questions, we'll look at that. And then so not just the first 5, but everybody who jumps in by Wednesday, September 9th, I'm going to raffle 2. So I will give you a free energetic session. It's remote. It's 60 minutes. This is where I get to kind of use my healing and Atlantean stuff that I'm really diving into to be able to assess your chakras and align and restructure or go into the field on each level and be able to kind of clear out or work on certain things, whether you've broken bones or you've got some blocks within your throat or certain areas. I can restructure some of those chakras and ultimately just help you have all of your chakra. And so I will raffle that to everybody who signs up by Wednesday. Then I'll pick 2 people to be able to do that. And I love doing it. It energizes me, right? I get to pull from source and allow your body to do the healing or give yourself whatever it is you need. And I also want to just plant the seed that there is a live coaching option. So if you want even more intense weekly coaching, that's there, and there's only 10 spots. You can learn more at prosperityalignment.com/thrive now. And really, I am so grateful to be here to share with you all of these aspects of prosperity, because that's what I want. I want more than anything for you to just really proclaim your prosperity, to call it in, be part of this new grid that we are moving into, and that you are helping to just really create that sustainable way for all of us. So thank you so much for being you, and thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And the link is both in the chat and on the Facebook replay. But thank you, Ellen.
Thank
Bye.
you.